You can push the envelope too wide and look good on paper, but the thing will just self-destruct. There's some boundaries that you can't go outside, otherwise your power section is just going to self-destruct. Viking needs a bigger footprint of models. In the last 5 years, we've been populating all those models that the customers require. We've come out with a new high-temperature elastomer, come out with a lot of proprietary designs that are doing very well.
One of my favorite things about working with you is you take a much more methodical approach, much more engineering approach.
I try and make sure everyone's aware that we need to be slick and nimble because we need to get things back quicker, and if we can do that quicker than our competitors, then it puts us ahead of them.
Last year in 2025, it's no secret we had a hiccup from a manufacturing standpoint, and it caused a lot of headache, right? What kind of success rate have we had since July 1st?
We've had very, very few customer complaints. Like you said, it's a 99.7% success rate right now. Still get the occasional one. It's a bit of a mystery. You always get that in this business. There's always one that you can't really put your finger on why it failed, but it's very few and far between now.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Viking Roundtable. I'm very excited about this episode and our guest. It was a little difficult to get him on camera, but he agreed to do it. And even though he watches the wrong football and roots for the wrong Ryder Cup team, I'm excited to talk to Dr. Iain Belcher, our Vice President of Engineering. Welcome, Dr. Belcher.
Good afternoon, Nick. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being here. So, look, just to give you kind of, and I'm sure you'll have seen some episodes by the time this comes out, what we're doing here is we're trying to humanize Viking a little bit. Everybody knows our product. Everybody knows what we do. We're trying to get that word spread further. But you and I have had conversations with our management team that we believe that, you know, the people are what make this company special. And so I think this is an awesome opportunity. Podcasts have lended themselves to really telling people stories and really getting the focus on the person rather than just the brand. And so just wanted to get you on here. I think you have an incredible story, just the depth of knowledge and where you've seen power sections start versus where they're at now. So I'm gonna kind of let you introduce it and talk about your career and where it got started and how you got to where you're at today.
Okay, well, it goes back a long way. I started in power sections as far back as 1990 in Manchester, England. At the time, Dresser Industries bought the company I worked for, Monopumps. Monopumps had never made a power section before, and Dresser led them into the power section industry. At the time, back in 1990, the biggest power section we made was a 9 5/8, and it was 12 feet long.
12 feet long.
12 feet long.
A little bit longer today.
We made 4 different models, and that's what got that mono company into the power section business, and I was the lead engineer in charge of it.
How many competitors did you have at that time?
Well, no direct competitors because we were making internal for Dresser. Dresser was setting up to make their own motor.
Okay.
And they needed someone to make power sections for them. So we weren't out on the open market at that point.
Understood. Yeah. And then from there, what was the next step? What was it?
For me?
Yeah. Was it Houston for you after that, or were you just,
it transitioned. I mean, Dresser then sold to Halliburton. There was lots of transactions going on with the company.
Sure.
And the company knew very well they had to have a presence here in Houston to actually grow the business. So opened up a reline facility here in Houston. They couldn't use the name Mono because that was trademarked with Robbins Myers and Moino. So they started the company over here called Monoflo.
Okay.
And that was on Britmore Road in Houston. And that was just a reline facility to start with. But then it grew and grew. And as it became bigger, that's when I moved over here, which is where all the business was. So myself and an engineer moved over here to lead the engineering for Monoflo in the American market.
Well, at that time, was it still internal only?
No, at that point it was trying to sell to other companies at that point.
Okay. And so you guys were Monoflo, and who else was in the business at that time that you were competing with?
Well, Robbins Myers.
Robbins Myers, obviously.
They were the big ones.
Yeah.
Dynajoe a little bit. They'd be the main two.
Okay, so
Dynajoe. There weren't so many companies back then. It was just a few.
Right.
That's why Dresser started that way, because there weren't many people doing it. It was Robbins and Myers and Dynajoe, and that was about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you came over here to Houston, and what time was that? What year was that?
99. So
in 99.
27 years ago.
Okay. So I know you're a family man. Did you have kids at that time? Or?
Yeah, I brought over my wife, and my daughter was 9, my son was 6.
Okay.
My son played the proper football, obviously. So I became a star over here.
The proper football. That would be, soccer. Got it.
No, the football with a round ball.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Your son has grown up to become an engineer,
He has, yes.
like Dad?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't encourage him to do that. He just did that all by himself.
Yeah.
Proud of him. He's doing a good job as an engineer. So.
Yeah. And your daughter's done tremendous things. She's very creative and does a lot of wedding planning and things like that and design stuff.
Not wedding planning. It's all the graphic and the art that's involved with weddings.
Right.
So seating charts and displays, menus, placemats, all the things that brides want in their wedding.
Absolutely.
She does all the creative side. So.
And owns her own business, but you're employee of the month every year, right?
Every month, yes.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Okay, so so you came over and you were with Monoflo, and then kind of where did you go from there?
So Monoflo was owned by Halliburton, and then Halliburton sold Monoflo to NOV.
Okay.
And at that point, everything sort of changed for me particularly.
Sure.
And I moved over and started working with Robbins Myers. So they were the big,
yeah,
the big number one at the time, Robbins Myers.
Sure.
I moved over there.
And then in that time frame, how much had Power Sections changed at that point? Was it still pretty much the same 4 models that you were offering?
Oh, no. By that time, there was hundreds of models.
Okay.
Because that was 2003, so that was like nearly 13 years later. So
sure.
By that time, there were lots of different companies doing it. Lots of customers wanted different requirements. So lengths, diameters.
Had the elastomer development started to hit yet?
The hard elastomer had just about started with Dynadrill first, and then Robbins Myers followed suit. But back in the old days of 2003, Robbins Myers still had their old, people in the industry will know as RM100.
Okay.
That was the elastomer, the easy general purpose elastomer that everyone used.
Okay.
That would never work today.
Right.
It's just too weak. Really easy to manufacture, but just not good in performance.
Right. You could get it glued in the tube pretty easy, but
everything was easy about RM100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a lot easier to get it back out of the tube is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got it. All right.
Yeah.
So then Robbins Myers for how long?
For 10 years.
Okay. All right.
And then Robbins Myers were bought by NOV.
NOV got, okay.
So they bought by NOV twice. At that point, that sort of upset the market because NOV already had a manufacturing site themselves.
Sure.
Basically 4 lines, 4 Desmas. And then they bought Robbins Myers that had another 4 Desmas, basically.
Okay.
So they became the big company making power sections now.
Sure.
And they were making power sections for themselves and for the market, and then that meant that a lot of people in the market didn't want to buy from them. So that's what sparked off all these other companies then.
Okay.
Vico and Basin Tech, they all started up then because there was a market for people who didn't want to buy from NOV.
Understood.
Roper was another one, and I left Robbins Myers and started at Roper.
Okay.
Roper wanted to get into the business. They had been in the business back in the mid-90s, but had a bad reputation, and they couldn't support the business from Commerce, Georgia, so they wanted to open up over here.
Okay.
So they recruited me to start up the facility here in Houston for them.
Okay.
And that's now the facility that Viking are in.
So that's I think it's really, really cool, that part of your story. Yeah. So you essentially set up, designed, made the facility that we're in today.
Yeah.
But it was for Roper.
It was for Roper. I stayed with Roper for about 4 years, and they never really did what they should have done with that facility in terms of throughput.
Mm-hmm.
They just had 1 or 2 customers. They thought that was the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a bit disillusioned by that.
Sure. And
left the business for 4 years.
All right.
And then you guys picked the phone up, and back I came.
Yeah, 4 years later would have been 2021, right?
No, 20. So I left Robbins Myers in 2013, left Roper in 2017.
Right. So 21 was 4 years later when we started Viking, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for an engineering. We had a building, we had the Desmas and the Weingartners, and we had a product, and then we said we probably need somebody to look at this from a much more technical standpoint than I could. And 1 or 2 phone calls later, you kind of fell in our lap, and it's just been incredible. There was a lot of unfinished business for you, and you were excited to get back. So let's talk about kind of how the evolution, how you've seen. So it's been 5 years at Viking now, and like what have you seen growth wise, or what? Just talk about your 5 years back in the power section business.
Well, the 5 years for Viking has obviously been growing and gaining market share and populating the portfolio. Because what they inherited from Roper was only a small chunk of what they really needed.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun, chunk. anyway.
An engineer would.
It was only a small portfolio, and they needed a bigger, Viking needs a bigger footprint of models. So
Sure.
in the last 5 years, we've been populating all those models that the customers require.
Yeah.
We've come out with a new high temperature elastomer, hydrogenated rubber. So that's new to Viking, and come out with a lot of proprietary designs that are doing very well.
Yeah, I think we're probably over. You guys are over 30 designs. I think
Yeah,
somewhere in that ballpark of 30 proprietary designs that we've come up with.
Yeah.
Some so good that other people now have them.
That's right.
Yeah. So no, it's been excellent, and one of my favorite things about working with you is you kind of pull the reins back on me. Like, no, this is you just can't do that, right?
Yeah,
And you take a much more methodical approach, much more engineering approach than I do. Where
Yeah.
I'm just I'm throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. And it's been really good to have you. I mean, learning from you and watching you build your team has been really neat for me to see from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Talk about your team and the guys that you have a part of the engineering group.
A great engineering team. There's 4 of us, myself, Kyle, Dominic and Mac, all with different backgrounds. Kyle's an Aggie, Max is an Aggie, and Dominic's from Cornell. So
Yeah.
he's from an Ivy League school. So a lot of capability. They've learned all the little nuances of power section design from me. So we're all as capable as each other now.
Yeah.
And that's great from the company's point of view, because that means any one of us can pick up any one of the jobs. It's proprietary design. It doesn't have to be, Kyle does it. It could be Max doing it. So we've got a lot of flexibility, and everyone can do everything we need to do.
Yeah, and I think I think even personality wise, we have 4 different backgrounds, but even different personalities. You've got some that are a little bit more outgoing, and some that would rather just sit and tinker and do those things.
Yeah.
But you do a good job of really stretching them and kind of pushing them. And does that come from just kind of how you were, for lack of a better term, raised in the business, or?
It's just the way I go about my work, my business. It's better for engineers if they have a variety of things to do, and it's also great if you can just sort of throw the project to them and let them get on with it, because they'll probably do it better than you will. So don't look over their shoulder at all. It's very hands off. The team that work with me, they like that. They like to do their own thing, and you get the benefit. Then they come up with lots of ideas, and they're very open. Well, they just come up with very good ideas.
Yeah, and they really do a good job of pushing each other, not in a demeaning way or anything like that, but they're all competitive, and they all do a really good job of, hey, there's a better way to skin this cat. So it's really good to see how they've all kind of grown together.
They interact really well. They respect each other, and when one of them comes up with an idea, the others say, oh, that's cool, and they they embrace it. So it's sort of healthy competitiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Talk about the growth you've seen and the challenges that presents to an engineering team. So in 21, when you first came on board, I think we had 2 injection lines and 1 wine gardener. And now currently, just talk about how we've grown and what kind of challenges that's presented to your team.
Well, from the engineering side, I mean, we're there as a support function. So as the company's grown to 4 Desmas and 5 wine gardeners, we need to be slick to keep up with all the pace of work. But a lot of the way we do things is very slick now. There's been a lot of automation and process improvements, so it's not as lengthy to design a power section. We can do it really quick. We've also sort of streamlined the way we put up part numbers and the way we do drawings for production, the way we work with the production facility. So everything's pretty quick and easy.
Yeah.
And you have to do that when you're growing, because you get more and more requests. So you've got to be able to handle them pretty quickly.
After that 5695 came out and kind of rewrote that speed range in the 7-inch, it's really given us, from a sales standpoint and an operation standpoint, the ability to go out and say, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it different. This is why you might not see the exact number, but we're going to give you, we're not just going to say, yes, we can do it. Because you can design a power section to go any speed you want to go, but there's give and take, right?
Yeah, you can push the envelope too wide and look good on paper, but the thing will just self-destruct. There's some boundaries that you can't go outside, otherwise your power section is just going to self-destruct, like I said.
Absolutely, and that comes from, and that's why it's so so good to have such a breadth of engineering background and talent. And I mean, obviously 1990, being in the business, you know, for that long and seeing all the different requests. And like I said, going from 4 power sections to what we see today. I mean, there's weeks, days sometimes where we get 4 requests for different power sections, let alone, you know, 4, just 4 power sections. Being able to have a little pushback, I think, is one of the things that is really good about our engineering group. Is like, look, we can do that, but this is why it won't work.
Yeah. The other thing that's been good as well is because we are pretty slick and nimble, we can get those requests back to you guys pretty quick. So
it makes all the difference in the world.
So we all work the same way, and I do that as a leadership. I try and make sure everyone's aware that we need to be slick and nimble because we need to get things back quicker. And if we can do that quicker than our competitors, then it puts us ahead of them.
That's absolutely right.
So I've heard a few times where, you know, some of the customers have been surprised we've got spec sheet back to them, you know, same day. You know, they said, "Oh gosh, you got it back quick." Well, that's what we need to do. You know, we've got to do that to give you guys a chance to get the business. Yeah,
so much of it, and I'm sure, you know, throughout your career, there's been probably different varying levels of it, but as we've grown this thing, you've probably taken on even a little bit more of a customer service role than you've had in previous roles and things like that. And
yeah, I've always been customer facing, but just from the technical side. But you know, I fully understand that, you know, you guys have got a difficult job and the customers are demanding, and the best thing we can do is just give you your feedback quickly and accurately. Like you say, don't let them push the envelope where it can't go.
Right. So a little bit off Viking now. Talk to me about your plans for this summer. You got. Is there anything going on this summer that you're excited about?
Well, there's maybe a few games going on, a few football games going on.
Yeah. First, I can't remember when the first NFL game is, but so you got big plans for the World Cup. You're gonna be a big part of that.
I hope so. Yeah. My boss will let me go.
We'll have that conversation. As long as I can get out of town where I'm not anywhere close to the traffic, I'll be good with it.
Yeah, it's a big deal. You know, it's the biggest World Cup ever. England and Scotland are in it, and Scotland don't very often get there, so that's quite good for the island over there. You know, it's good banter going on between the Scots and the English.
Sure.
So it should be really exciting. You know, 48 teams, and there's a lot of football to be played.
Have you been to any matches, World Cup matches elsewhere?
I've never been to a World Cup match, so I'm really looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, that's...
I've been to some of the warm-up games previously. When they were going to Brazil for that World Cup, they did warm-up games in Miami, so we had a road trip down there and watched those.
Okay.
So, you know, this is a perfect opportunity to see some World Cup games.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can see a world-class athlete, no matter what the sport is, I think it's definitely worth taking advantage of, for sure.
Yeah. It's going to be slow getting started because there's so many to get through the group stages, that's going to take a number of weeks. And really the big games don't happen until the elimination games. That's when the big games happen.
Understood. So it's like the John Deere Classic versus the Masters.
No, it's just the build-up to it. It's just the qualifying, basically.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you know, I'm just trying to put it in golf terms because I understand that a little bit more than soccer.
It's like qualifying for the Open.
There you go.
And then getting to the Open.
And then getting to the Open.
The last 4 days.
Fair enough.
So we have all these qualifiers all around the US for the US Open.
Yeah.
So it's winning a qualifier and getting into the final stages.
Fair enough.
That's what the World Cup's like.
I gotcha. Well, speaking of golf, how's your golf game lately?
Oh, fantastic.
I know what that means.
Sometimes I can even hit it and it go in the air.
There you go. Yeah. So that's perfect. Well, no, like I said, so talk to me that they're kind of getting back into the work thing, and we were talking about kind of the growth of Viking, and we've implemented this new vision app, and tell me from your perspective, hey, how does that change? Is this something that you have always wanted? Is it something kind of beyond what you always thought was capable? Are you pretty excited about like talk about vision and what do you think it'll do for the company?
Number one, very excited about it. Beyond my expectations of what we could get out of it. It's so far advanced than what I thought we could ever get. It's just incredible. You know, it's bizarre really, but me as an engineer is going to say we're not going to need drawings anymore, that's the way that engineers communicate, is through SolidWorks models, designs, drawings. That's how we communicate. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a thing of the past, and we're nearly there. You know, at the end of this year, in the next few months, we're not going to create drawings. We're just going to create databases of all the required numbers and all the designs, and that's how that's going to run the business. Yeah, the Vision app's going to interrogate the database to populate the information for the guys on the floor in terms of what size they need and what tolerance is on it and what the spec is. It's all going to come from a database. So, you know, rather than us do a drawing and, you know, laboriously go through and get all the numbers correct and make it look nice, we're not doing that anymore. We'll just go to the database, insert a line, and add the new numbers.
Yeah.
So it's going to be so quick, so slick. It's going to be beautiful.
And talk about how that's going to impact. So another role that you've taken on as the vice president of engineering is we've moved the quality group under you. And I think it's been probably the biggest step change that we've made that has taken us to another level from a quality standpoint. How is that going to affect your quality team?
Well, the Vision app will have all the tolerances there on the screen. So there's no going to a book or a procedure and looking up what it should be and maybe mistakenly look at the wrong line, and so instead of looking for 5 you've read 6.
Yep.
So simple things like that, so that all goes away. So there's no reading errors, if you like. Also on the Vision app there's certain fields that you can't put the wrong number in. I mean, if you're looking for 7 inch, you can't put 70 inches in. It'll just time out and won't take it.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, all the QC checks are going to be a lot more diligent. It won't let you put in bad data, which is great. But the other thing is you don't rely on people writing things down on a piece of paper. It's now live on the system as it's going through.
Yeah.
So you can see everything right there and then.
Yeah.
So you can go and see any tube you want, wherever it is in the manufacturing area, and see how it's gone through incoming, how it's gone through blast and prep, and see everything that was done to it. And it's all there recorded live.
Yeah.
Whereas previously you'd have to wait for the work order to come all the way through, it'd go in a pile, someone would scan it, and it'd go on the server. And then if you want to interrogate it, you've then got to go on the server, find what you know. So it's just a game changer.
It's kind of amazing how many times we'll get a phone call, hey, where's this tube? Where's it at? Well, let me go put my hands on it. We'll have a digital footprint of it, exactly where it's in the shop. It can't go to the next stop without being timed out at the first stop. I mean, so there will be, it's almost a tracker on every tool that goes through the shop. Yeah. And so it'll be tremendous for us to oh, well, that one's at prep. That one's too late. We can't change the elastomer type because it's at cutback, you know. And our responsiveness will be so much better. And the tracking of that tube from the time it comes in the door to who checked it in to who's measuring it on the incoming QC all the way to who does the final QC, how long it was in the autoclave, how long it took on the desmo. All of that stuff will be, and that's part of the things. I don't even know that we knew we were prepping for this stuff when we were doing it, but like some of the stuff that the engineering team has put in from the live tracking of our different pieces of equipment throughout the shop and all that stuff, all of that gets fed into one spot where you can go, this is how this thing was manufactured. This is how this thing was, you know, this is the life of it.
Yeah. It's incredible what you can do.
Yeah.
You know, AI's got some critics, but in this application, it's just incredible what it can do.
Well, and I think that's you know, to say it's one thing to say that you've been in the power section game since 1990, but the evolution of what's gone on, not only with the elastomers, but with the length of the power sections, with the amount of torques being put out, with the different technology that we're using to get there. How have you been able to adapt to all those changes and really take advantage of them?
It's part of being an engineer, you know, as things get bigger, better, longer, faster, you adapt with you follow the trend, you know. Otherwise, if you don't, you just sit back and you end up being a dinosaur. You've got to move with the times. Yeah. So it's not, for engineers, it's not difficult to adapt to changes. They embrace it, you know, because it's always bigger and better than it was before. So
pushing the envelope a little bit.
Yeah. So as it's grown, it's just exciting to be involved with, you know, okay, so we're going to do a 300-inch power section. Well, the first time that's done, it's quite exciting, you know. We've done it, you know, we managed to do it. We didn't think we could, but we did.
And now not only do we have 300-inch power sections, we've got 300-inch even wall power sections.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so talk about some of the difficulties with the difference between injecting an even wall stator versus a conventional stator.
Well, the even wall, obviously you've got a thinner section of rubber, so it's a challenge to get the rubber all the way down the end of the tube because you've got less area to work with. And then the other thing is you've got to make sure that the profile of the core aligns with the profile of the tube. Otherwise, you don't get even rubber. You get it off, and it's thick on one side.
Really thin mismatched rubber.
Yeah. So there's just techniques we've had to develop to make sure we keep it on center and clocked right.
And how long have you been working with even wall stator injections?
My first experience of that was back in Robbins Myers days. So it goes back to what would we say? Late nine, I don't know, just to early 2000s.
Early 2000s?
2006, maybe 2007.
So 20-ish years you've been
Yeah.
messing with perfecting the craft of, because
Yeah.
it's definitely even different models that we've had. We've had some different challenges with
Yeah.
the bigger the model gets, the heavier the core gets, all of the different challenges, and watching your team adapt and learn
Yeah.
different things has been really cool to watch, because not everybody can do that, right? And not everybody can inject a stator.
Yeah.
We always like to dumb it down and say we're just gluing rubber into a metal tube, but there's a lot more that goes into it, obviously.
So when I was with Robbins Myers, they were one of the first companies that came out with they called it ERT, and that's become the buzzword for that technology.
Yeah.
There were a few other companies doing it. A German company was China, but really Robbins Myers were the leaders. So that's where I learnt my even more technology from.
Yeah.
So that's the pedigree I've got on that.
So you're talking about the technology that, with even walls and things like that. What kind of new technology can we, when we talk about, the Vision app and the things that we're doing from a manufacturing standpoint, but what can we look forward to from Viking for the rest of this year and beyond?
Well, in the near term, the big opportunities with it's always materials. It's always the best company is the one that's got the best rubber. So we're looking to not stand still on that. We're looking to develop a new high temperature rubber, which is hydrogenated rubber. That's in works right now. But also we want to sort of develop our hard rubber and take that to the next level, where we hopefully make it last a little bit longer.
Yes, sir.
Keep it with the same durometer, keep it the same hardness. Yeah. And make it last longer.
So we're going to go from a 99.7% success rate to a 99.9% success rate. No, and look, so last year in 2025, it's no secret we had a hiccup from a manufacturing standpoint, and it caused a lot of headache, right? And so we had to kind of go back to the drawing board, look at what we were doing, identify where that problem was at. We were very upfront with our customers as to what happened, and we used July 1st as the turnaround date. So talk about what kind of success rate have we had since July 1st with our 007, kind of our everyday elastomer?
Well, yeah, since July 1st, once we got through the hiccup, we've had very, very few customer complaints, very few power sections that didn't reach TD. Like you said, it's a 99.7% success rate right now.
Yep.
Still get the occasional one that, it's a bit of a mystery. You always get that in this business. There's always one that, you can't really put your finger on why it failed.
Right.
But it's very few and far between now,
Yeah.
So it's part of what I look at as part of my job. I keep an eye on all the failures, and there's less of them. So that part of my job is not as much work as it.
That's excellent. That's excellent. But we're still, like you said, we're not sitting on our hands. We're moving forward.
Yeah, but your success rate though is based on what they're doing right now in terms of drilling. But you've been telling me about the way they drill lateral and they do the U-turn.
The U-turn laterals.
So the laterals are going to last longer. So our rubber needs to last longer.
Absolutely.
We want our rubber to outlast the motor. We want the motor to fail somewhere else, not the rubber.
That's right.
So
we worry about the top end, they can figure out the bottom end, right?
Yeah. So when they run one and it breaks the connection, I'm fine with that.
Right. Yeah. So no, and look, not only has the elastomer changed, but we're doing some really innovative things, and you and your team are doing some really innovative things as far as working with the customers ahead of time, as far as fluid sampling and working and looking at what happens to our mud with this fluid, and not just lab samples, but actually going out to the field, getting some samples and testing our elastomers, not only that we have now, but that we're developing in the future against actual drilling mud that's going to be used in the field. Because as you well know, and you've seen throughout your career, drilling mud in North Dakota is different than drilling mud in West Texas is different than drilling mud. And heck, even in West Texas, it's different than, from rig 1 to rig 2. And so being able to adapt to that, and so talk about maybe some of the things that we have in-house, and then other opportunities that you see that we can continue to grow from that standpoint.
Okay, so on the elastomer side, we're developing a new elastomer with our elastomer supplier. He's doing the recipes and working closely with us. Part of the process is to make sure the elastomer will actually survive in those drilling muds that you've talked about. For the first time, really, the elastomer vendors getting involved right at the beginning on making sure the rubber will survive in those drilling muds, and we've provided drilling muds from your customers to do the testing. So that's a little bit of a change to how it's been done in the past. We're also doing testing now that we can take a sample of rubber or a fluid, and actually it's called gas chromatography. So that analyzes the sample and tells you what fluids are in the sample that could hurt your rubber. And we've not done a lot of that in the past, but we're doing more of it now, and it's quite eye-opening that you can take two samples, rubber that's worked perfectly fine, and then on a neighbouring well or different, quite close by, there's another sample and that one didn't work so well, and you can see that it's just night and day difference on the result, and it all comes down to the mud.
Yeah.
So
and what's kind of impregnated itself into the mud versus
So we've got more and more capability now to sort of interrogate and do forensics on those sort of failures. We're in a much better place to be able to sort of point at the mud sometimes.
To point at the mud, but then also to go back to our elastomer provider and say, hey, is there any way to protect against this, right? So we understand that there's certain muds that are always going to be used regardless of, we don't have control over that, right? We don't,
Correct.
All we can do is educate and say, hey, this is detrimental. But at the same time, we can now test for those and then look at our elastomer and say, hey, is there a way to, can we strengthen this so that this particular substance that is always, this chemical that always has to be in the mud, can we protect against it somehow?
Yeah. I think we'll get into more and more of that the more data we get from this GC testing.
It's been tremendous. It's been something that I'm excited that you and your team found and are using, and I think it's making us better as a company and making us a better supplier and a partner for our customers. So it's been tremendous. So well, look, I told you this was going to take half an hour, but I think we might be a little bit over that. So kind of the way that I always want to wrap this up, and like I said, the whole idea of the Viking Roundtable is for people to gain a little bit more insight into who we are as a company, but most importantly, who the core of us is our people, right? And so there's a lot of people who might be watching this or listening to this that think engineering is the way to go, or want to get in the power section business. So I'm going to give you the floor and let you kind of give your piece of advice for anybody that's thinking about getting into engineering, or even if you just want to do life advice, whatever we'll call it, life advice with Dr. Belcher, however you want to do it. But the microphone is yours to kind of give your wisdom.
Well, it probably applies to engineering, but any discipline really. Starting off in your career, I would just encourage you to carry on learning, never stop learning, and never stop taking on more responsibility and more challenges. I always encourage my team to be what I call proactive. So don't just sit at your desk and wait for someone to tell you to do a job. That's not how I work. I mean, I want people there who can work in the company, see problems, identify the problem, figure out a solution, and then take steps to fix it.
Sure.
And sometimes they do that before I even know it's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's perfect.
Yeah.
And you got to go to work and enjoy it. If you don't, it becomes a long 8-hour day.
Yeah.
When you're enjoying something when you start, you walk in, and before you know it, it's 4:00 and it's time to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be my advice.
Outstanding. Well, Dr. Belcher, thank you again. Thank you for all you do for Viking, but thank you for coming on this podcast and kind of peeling back the layers and letting people know who you are and what makes Viking special. So thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Viking Roundtable. Look forward to seeing you again soon.